Everyone gets nervous about reaching out cold. But if you're just getting started doing an interview show and you don't have a large existing network, or even if you do, eventually you're going to have to do cold outreach because interview shows require fresh content and fresh faces. In this video, I'm going to give you the practical steps to start doing cold outreach, how to deal with common objections that come up, and the most important habit to consistently book interviews from cold outreach. Hi, my name is Alex Mershak. I am the founder and CEO of a site called Conviviality. Conviviality is an AI platform that helps podcasters find great guests to interview. I'm also a podcaster myself, and I've done over 100 interviews across 2 different shows for the last 5 years. So when you're starting out as a brand new podcaster, or as I said before, even if you have been doing a show for a little while, you're going to get to a point where you run out of contacts that you already know, and you're going to have to do some cold outreach. And this may be nerve-wracking to you if you've never been in a job where you've had to do that kind of thing before. If you've done sales or fundraising or something where you've done a lot of cold outreach previously, whether that's through email, through the phone, knocking on doors, whatever, then you're going to have a little bit more comfort with this skill of just reaching out cold to people. But for most people in their day-to-day lives that do not have this kind of sales experience, doing cold outreach can seem intimidating, nerve-wracking, maybe even something that freezes you up and stops you from going forward with your show. And the whole purpose of this channel, Conviviality, is to get people having great conversations. And so learning how to do cold outreach and getting that skill set down and then developing it further into a habit that you have continually that you could call on to bring in people that you want to talk to is something that's going to be key to unlocking having some of the greatest conversations of your life. So when you're first starting out, of course, you want to make sure that you have a good list of people to reach out to. If you don't know how to get that list of people, if you watch my previous video on how to get started landing your first guest, I go into detail about how to source from both the networks that you have as well as adjacent networks and, of course, people that you are not connected to at all, so you can start building out that first list of people to talk to. But we're going to start this assuming that you already have a list of people that you want to reach out to. How do you start doing cold outreach? Well, the first thing is you need to decide what your channels are going to be. And those outreach channels can be extremely varied today. So in general, the channels that people are going to think of that are going to be common are going to be things like email, right? Depending on, again, what platforms that you're using or what platforms your audience is on, it's going to be social network DMs, right? So think of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Often YouTubers will have an email in their YouTube bio, as well as direct messaging and group chats and any other kind of, connections you have to people where you can reach out to them in some way, right? So you just need to identify what are the core channels that you're going to be reaching out to people on. And a lot of this, again, is going to be dependent on who you're aiming to talk to and what kind of platforms are already popular on. Because in general, when you're reaching out to people, if they are already doing a lot of stuff on YouTube, or if they're already doing a lot of stuff on X, Twitter, or they're already doing a lot of stuff on Instagram, well, it's very likely that they're going to be expecting to get outreach on those platforms. In some cases, they may have a personal website with a contact form that shows you how to get in touch with them. And in some other cases, there may even be a publicly available email address. So there's a whole variety of ways that you can reach out to people. But what you want to make sure you do is you go through that list of people that you have and you try to get at least one decent, verified, authoritative contact information on them that you can. And for some guests, this is going to be very easy. For others, especially if they're already more famous or more elevated, it may or may not be more difficult. In some cases, you may have to go through an agent or a publicist, or you may have to go through a general inbox, like for people that are working at think tanks or even at some university departments. There's going to be a general inbox where an assistant or a secretary or someone like that will handle the mail, the incoming mail, and then direct it to that individual if they think that it's a good opportunity. And so in general, you just want to make sure that you have a solid point of contact and you understand what your primary channels are going to be. And I would say as an interviewer and as someone conducting interview shows, that one place to start that's just a general rule is that you want to have an idea of, okay, most of my audience lives on these 1 or 2 platforms. Beyond that, you're starting to get into like kind of excessive posting. And if you don't already have a large following or you don't have a show that's already making a lot of money, it's, in my opinion, a little bit too much duplication of efforts. If you're going to try to, cover 4, 5, 6 different platforms, what you want to do is narrow down, okay, my core audience lives on X and YouTube, or my core audience lives on Instagram and TikTok, whatever it is. And try to leverage those to find the creators that you want to reach out to, but also to find the contact information and utilize the sites that they're already on, right? So if someone's a big Instagram creator and their Instagram DMs are open, well, don't go find their email and send them an email, right? Unless they have something in their bio that says, "Oh, if you want to contact me, do it through this channel." Go straight to this. Go straight to the DMs. And I think people, when they're first getting started, are a little bit intimidated or scared to go straight to the DMs. And not everyone's DMs are open, but if the DMs are open, I would always recommend opting for the DMs first. Because it's the most intimate, it's the most personal, it's the most likely channel where you're going to actually reach them. A lot of times email addresses might be old, they might be expired, they might not pay attention to those anymore. And you're much more likely to get a response from them. And it's much more likely to be a swift response, a direct response, if you can reach out to the DM. So the DM is always the strongest, of course, if they're not already in your network. Now, let's get to what to say, right? Because you're reaching out cold to someone that you don't know, that you've never spoken to before. And in many cases, for most of you watching or listening to this, you are going to be someone who's relatively unknown, who doesn't have any kind of large name recognition or brand or known. You're not a known entity in the world. And so you're thinking, well, what do I say? And of course, in my last video as well, I go into a script for what you can say and how to think about talking about yourself. But briefly, what you want to do is you want to keep it short and sweet. Right? So your job is basically to, as succinctly as you can, inform them who you are, what you're looking for, why you want to talk to them, and then just ask them if you can arrange a meeting, right? That's it. That's it. And it's something that you want to do in a very short message, and you want to do it in such a way so they can read it in under 1 minute. You don't want to go very long with this. For certain types of sales or copywriting or so forth, when you're trying to get people to buy things, you want to, send them long paragraphs or really long landing pages where people are reading and reading and reading. For this kind of a thing, you do not want to do that. Because you're wasting their time. B, you're assuming that they're actually going to read all of that. And then C, there's kind of a naivete or a lack of experience that's indicated by sending someone a giant wall of text. People that are experienced doing this kind of thing and have an understanding of a value for their time as well as the time of others, and who've done this a lot, have an intuitive sense for, okay, you want to basically get in and get out and get the message out as fast as possible. And when you're working with the highest level people, actually, you'll find in general, the interactions, the messaging is going to be very, very short, very, very brief, and there's not going to be a lot of back and forth. It's going to be, here's what I am, here's what I'm trying to do. If you want to talk, please let me know. And that's going to be it. And then they're going to respond. And if they say yes, you're going to say awesome. And you're going to send them a link and you're going to set up a meeting. Because the thing is that people that are operating at a very high level, they've got a lot going on. And they're not interested in spending the time in those messaging apps, just going back and forth all day or writing out long pieces of text. Now, if you form a friendship with this person, maybe that will change over time. But especially in the beginning and especially before you've actually spoken to them, you want to keep things as brief and make it as easy and frictionless for them as possible. And so it's just going to be, you're introducing yourself, you're telling them that what your show, that you're inviting them on your show, what your show is about, and then maybe a little bit of reason why you want to talk to them. This is my personal approach. I don't go into deep detail on what the show is going to be. If they ask me, okay, what do you want to talk about, or what kind of questions are you going to ask me? Then I will follow up and give them more context and more information about what I'm trying to set up. But in that initial message, I actually just try to have 1-2 sentences max um, about why I want to talk to them, why I think they would be relevant for my show and for my audience. Um, and and that's basically it. You want to give them a kind of brief, somewhat vague pitch because you don't want to also pigeonhole yourself into talking about something with them that maybe they aren't interested in talking about, right? So maybe you know them as this person that's done this one thing, and that was something that they did a couple of years ago, and they haven't done a lot of other things since, but actually they're working on some side project right now, and that's actually something they really want to excited to talk about. Well, if you go to them and you make it, too clear that you only want to talk about this one other thing that they did a couple of years ago, well, then maybe they'll just say no to it because they're expecting to have a boring, repetitive conversation that they've already had 100 times when actually they're excited to talk about this new thing. And so you want to basically, give them a high level reason for why you're interested in talking to them, but not paint yourself into a corner where you're suddenly setting the frame of this conversation in a very rigid way. Right. And for me personally, I always say, it would be an honor to speak with you. I hope we can set something up soon. And I leave it at that. That's how I end it. It's very simple. And, I don't reach out to anyone that it wouldn't be an honor to speak to. And so I can say that. And I'm saying that very earnestly. I'm not just kissing their ass. But that's basically what you want to do. And I leave it at that. And then I wait, and I wait. Sometimes they get back to me in a few minutes. Sometimes it's a few hours. Sometimes it's a few days. Sometimes it's not at all. Right. And the thing is, when they get back to you, if the answer is yes, then you want to, again, make it as simple and seamless as possible to book the show. Because the thing is, nothing is truly finalized until you're actually live with them doing the recording. Everything up until that point is just smoke and mirrors. It's just hoping. It's just waiting. Whatever they say to you in the interim, none of it is real. None of it you can bank on until you're actually sitting down with them and having the conversation on the record. And I know this because I've had people say that they're going to do the show and then totally disappear when I send the booking link. I've had people say they're going to do the show and then back out at the last minute. I've had people say they're going to do the show, reschedule it 3 times, and then eventually come on. I've had people say they're going to do the show, reschedule it, appear for the actual recording itself, and then before we actually start the interview, say, hey, by the way, I don't want to do this today. Can we reschedule? I mean, literally the day of, literally the hour that we're doing the interview, I've had this happen, and then ghost me and never go back again. So nothing is set in stone until you actually are sitting down recording with them. And so you want to basically make it as easy as possible and as quick as possible to get that done. If they ask, when can you be available, or I won't be available for a few weeks, fine. My protocol is to send a calendar link of some kind, whether that's Calendly or cal.com. I've used both because in my opinion, it's just better and more efficient than having this 4 or 5 message back and forth to coordinate time zones and time that you're available. I don't want to deal with any of that. And I don't know why any reasonable person would. And so I just say, oh, great, awesome. Thank you so much. Here, book a time, anytime in the next few weeks that works for you. Very simple, very straightforward. If they say they need more time, I say, oh yeah, you can book up to 60 days out. And, if they needed more than 60 days out, then probably you should just contact them, again in a couple months and do it all over again. But that's it. It's a very simple process. And in the beginning, again, this is going to be very nerve-wracking. You're going to be unsure. You're going to feel nervous about reaching out to people that you don't know. You're going to be worried that, maybe they block you, whatever, this, that, the other thing. Thing is, most of the time, you're going to get no response. The most common response is going to be no response. And that's not going to happen all the time. When I first started, I'd say that my hit rate as far as, requests to actual booked interviews was somewhere around 20 to 25%, depending on the week. Over time, it's actually gone down a little bit. And I don't think that's because I've gotten worse or the pitch has gotten worse. I think that's actually just because people are more saturated with interview requests, especially people that are popular these days, than they were 5 years ago when I started. So I started in actually the spring, or actually before the spring, it was still winter of 2020. And at that time, even though lots of people were starting new shows and there was a lot of, reversion not reversion, but induction into online content as a result of the pandemic, there was still more space than there is now, right? Today, there's so many shows, so many podcasts, so many people asking for people's time and asking for interviews that my response rate has actually gone down. And so I wouldn't say that a 25% response rate is reasonable for you. Now, if you're very targeted with who you're reaching out to and you know exactly who's in your niche and those people are not flooded with tons of interviews and you can give a good pitch, you might actually be able to hit that kind of a target and sustain close to that for a little while. But in general, you're going to be looking at a hit rate closer to 10 to 20%, right? Maybe 15%, something like that. I would expect people to get back to you. Now, the other thing to remember is that if they don't respond after your first message, you don't want to hound them. You don't want to follow up right away. You definitely don't want to get mad at them for ignoring you, but you can do a follow-up. And my rule is that I follow up at least 3 times when I get no response before I mark them off on my list to not be followed up with again for at least 6 months. And that's what I do. And I would say that you probably don't want to do it 3 days in a row. You probably want to do something like maybe once a week at most, right? So maybe you send someone an email, you don't get a response. A week later, you send them a follow-up email. Hey, I don't know if you saw my last email. I wanted to have you on my show. And maybe, a week after that or 2 weeks after that, you send them a final email. And if you don't get a response after that, just mark them as, a dead lead for now. And then follow up again in 6 months. By the time 6 months has passed, a lot is going to be changed. Who knows where they're going to be at? Who knows their mental state? There are all kinds of reasons why someone might not respond to you. It might be because they don't know who you are. It might be because they're nervous about coming on your show. It might be because of your pitch. It might be just because they've got personal stuff going on in their own lives. And they're not, in a state where they can do that. I've had people that totally ignored me. And then one day I send them an email and they just get back to me and we do the show. I've had other people that, before seemed like they wanted to come on and then suddenly pulled out for some odd reason. And so you just don't really know until you actually start doing the outreach. But you got to do the outreach. Because the thing is that you'll be surprised at the kind of people and the kind of opportunities that you can get when you just go out and ask. And that's the whole point of this video, is to just get you started. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter even if you're Joe Rogan, right? I mean, he probably doesn't ever have to do this these days because assistants and other people are doing it for him. But even they have to occasionally reach out to people who've never reached out to them to ask if someone wants to be on their show. They have to do cold outreach. Now, obviously, it's not totally cold because he's so famous now and so well known that pretty much everyone that they're reaching out to will most likely at least heard of them. However, for years and years and years, they were doing cold outreach, right? And of course, they get inundated with lots of requests, and so they have the luxury of being able to filter those and look through them and decide, oh, we want to talk to this person, we don't want to talk to this person. But also, they occasionally say, oh, we need an expert on such and such, or Joe wants to talk to this person or whatever, right? And they have to go, and someone has to go and do the outreach. And so cold outreach is a fundamental fact of life if you're going to be doing an interview show. And the sooner you start, the better. Because as I said in the beginning of this video, it's not just a skill, it's a habit. And the more acclimated you get to doing this on a regular basis, the easier it's going to be, the less resistance there's going to be internally to doing it. And the sooner you can get started having great conversations. This is Alex Mershak with Conviviality. Thank you for watching and good luck.